So I just want to, since Pekka has given them a wonderful introduction, I just want to, in a way, casually share my experiences with them in a way to introduce them again. So, Manjit is a dynamic business and people leader, used to be a senior director of a fintech company, Visa, and she juggles several businesses. And interestingly, she runs 2 homes in 2 countries. Yeah, and she's also our graduate in the Postgraduate Diploma in Positive Outside and Leadership and a Master's of Science in Positive Psychology. And what's interesting about her, she has such dynamic ideas and energy. And a secret sauce, that in her family, there are 2 positive psychology practitioners. And that is her daughter over there, Isha. You know, like mother, like daughter, right?
Yeah.
So she's a wonderful woman, and every time she inspires me. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, chatting with Hiro. Chatting with him is always inspiring and engaging, and he cares a lot about people, development, and organization. And just a quick sneak peek about his history. He used to be a MediaCorp journalist and producer, always in the pursuit of showcasing authentic human experiences. And in the last 10 years, he has joined the government sector, and now he is the leading well-being head of A-Star. And for the past 2 times we've been engaged, he's making seismic waves in the government industry. I know that he will think that I am over-exaggerating, but this is what I feel. And I'm very happy that you are here with us today. So thank you very much. So every time we talk about positive psychology and in aligned to our today's topic, transforming organizations with positive psychology initiatives, I want to take a step back in terms of the why. Like, this is something meaningful for you that you are doing, right? Transforming organizations and workplaces. So let's take one step back. Why do you enter, or why do you choose to study positive psychology? Yeah, so this is the first question I will start with first.
Okay. So, actually, in my case, this comes with an interesting story. My daughter actually was doing the postgrad, and she was attending Robert Diener's coaching, positive psychology coaching program. He has a huge fan club, by the way, and for good reason. And she told me that I absolutely must make time to attend the public seminar that he was running, also scheduled to run alongside the one that he was doing for the module. And she made me tweak my schedule, which included changing my work travel dates, just to accommodate those dates. And I say today, no regrets, that was my initial introduction into positive psychology. I mean, what's there not to be enticed with? The promise of learning how thoughts, belief, value systems, emotions and actions can influence flourishing and state of well-being. Now, that is a very strong proposition, and I met up with Stefan and his team and figured out how I was going to fit it all into my schedule, which was crazy then, and somehow we made it happen. Yeah, Stefan? I never completed a single module with the same cohort, again thanks to my schedule. But the good thing is I was meeting different fellow graduates all the time, and again, no regrets, and thank you, Stefan and the team, for accommodating me. It's been fulfilling, and I have many stories to share about that.
Thank you so much for sharing. You know, when you say, I remember the times we used to talk together and then we talk about all the scheduling, but I feel that it's your dedication and perseverance that make it happen. Yeah, and thank you for sharing your why. And what about you, Hiro? Because you have a fascinating story about why you joined us. Can you share a little bit with the audience here?
As the head of the organization, one of the heads of the organization, it was at a juncture where people were feeling a little bit unwell mentally, and this was pre-COVID. You know, so you can imagine Singapore's productivity drive. People didn't know why. They didn't have the vocabulary, the words. So that's where I searched around for positive psychology. So I signed up, and my first module was Yana, and she was just a ray of sunshine. You know, she just completely flipped my mindset on strengths. You do not need to be weak. You don't need to focus so much on your weaknesses. Just focus on what you do well. And that just completely shifted my paradigm. And since then, I've never looked back.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. You know what, I want to use, well, maybe exaggeration, but I like this, the reason behind why you signed up. And you talk about Yana as a ray of sunshine, and you learn so many things from her. And this goes to the next question. Just out of curiosity, in terms of the learning journey, learning positive psychology, which is your favorite module?
Every single module, for me at least, holds such rich content, so much depth, and relevance, and most importantly, practical application. Because I'm very much into practical application. But if I were to narrow it down in the interest of time, I will actually zoom into two areas that are correlated. For me, especially given what I do in the professional space, positive organizational psychology would be top. Because honestly, the positive psychology initiatives, in my experience, are applicable in every area of organizational development, and I challenge anyone to disagree with me. The other one actually is closely related, positive psychology coaching, because it's all about the people, right? The people drive what we seek to do in terms of achieving organizational excellence. So positive psychology coaching, in my experience, actually positions our team to know their strengths, and it actually helps them draw from that to move themselves in the areas of professional, personal excellence, and they bring their entire teams together with it. And at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation because the organization benefits.
You know, thanks Manjit for sharing that. When I hear your sharing about personal excellence and organization development, I am very intrigued about two parts. The first part would be personal excellence and development, because in order to live this and carry the science or carry the torch of well-being, we first have to apply it to ourselves first. And this brings me to the question that I'd like to ask Hiro, who is being as a head of well-being, because from pre-pandemic to now, there's so many different changes, right? Especially in Singapore. And I want to ask you, what is some of the personal excellence changes at your own level as an advocate in this area, before you share what are some of these experiences and how do you also share them in your work with your interventions?
You have to believe in what you do, in well-being. A lot of the times, a lot of people have this imposter syndrome to say that, okay, I've listened to someone talking about positive psychology, about wellness, well-being, and I want to influence in my organization, okay? Everybody wants to have that admirable goal. But when they go down and try to convince the bosses, the business leaders, it's difficult because they look at the bottom line. So they hit you with a lot of hard facts on how much does it cost? Do I have manpower? How much time do you need? I don't have that much time. You need to have the conviction to say that it's possible, because if you get this instituted, you will see benefits in productivity, less absenteeism, people will be engaged, you will save on training costs because people will stop leaving the organization. And it's really convincing these leaders about what you are presenting to them. And in order to have that conviction, you just need to believe in what you do. I mean, it's a little bit waffy, but you have to embody it. Because once you embody it day to day, you go to the MRT station, you go on the bus, you interact at the hawker centers. If you use positive psychology elements, you use empathic listening, because there are two sides to the school, right? One is the counseling side, the other one is the positive psychology side. All of them, it's all about relationships. How do we keep these relationships close to us? And how do we empower the relationships of these people around us? So once you see that in action, you begin to believe that, and then you start to say, maybe I can use this in my organizations, because they're all tiny communities, right? Businesses and companies. So if I can influence the people around me with positive psychology, I can do that in my workplace. So conviction through your own actions first.
And I just want to look back to what Hiro had said about conviction, right? I think that in everything in what we do in our lives, it starts with this unwavering belief and the hope that it can be achieved, and that is really important. And it's about how you show up in your workplace, right? And through this conviction, you can start to look at interventions and how to make this relatable to the crowd that we are serving, the audience, so that people in the industry, like your husband, the rest, okay, I get the point now, right? This is the ROI. So this leads me to the next question. How about you, Hiro? Can you share some exciting updates or interventions and practices that we are wanting to see? As a Singaporean, I'm very interested to see what are some of the shifts, right? How are we stepping up to making this possible or relatable in well-being and mental health?
I think Singapore is at this amazing time where we're looking at fun in a different light. Fun in the sense of, obviously it's learning, social cues, it's learning about people as we interact with them, and it's also getting feedback from other people on how we are interacting with them. Singapore in the past is always very stoic, so fun is very frivolous. You know, it's like kids' child's play. But in the workplace, slowly being introduced, we have Infused After 5, and that's a get-together. What is different pre-COVID and now is pre-COVID, it was just, I'm going to buy a couple of bottles of wine, some cheeses, people are just going to come, gather, eat, and then go back home, right? So it's just something to relax. But now, we have the national strategy for well-being, right? And it's the government's acknowledgement that we need to do more for the 2.5 adult Singaporeans' mental health. We do not have enough Singaporeans to helm the kind of ambition that Singapore wants it to be. And if everybody becomes mentally unwell, who's going to do the job? And this also includes all the amazing foreign workers, amazing PRs that are contributing to the welfare of Singapore. So fun is now being seen as a necessity. It's no more buying cheese and wine. It's like we need it for a higher purpose. We're shifting from wellness to well-being, where wellness, it's like, yeah, it's good to have, you know, it's something fun, and then I'll put it on the newsletter and say that we've done it. Something that HR puts on their KPIs, right? Now it's well-being. They want to measure, are you happy? Are you connecting with people at these social gatherings? Do you feel that you're able to collaborate more with other people from another department? So we're breaking the silos, right? So they're going deeper now into all these matrix. The issue will come if you are working in a company that requires this. You need to have the vocabulary, the knowledge on how to piece it together in order to convince management and in order to, in our own heads. And that's why I'm still a student in the school. It's because there's so much, a lot of development that's happening. I need a language that is being used by the people around the world to be this international community of well-being, to speak it. And once you speak it, management learns it, like, you know, my boss who forgets and don't have time to learn new things, they will learn from me. And we co-create the well-being together in the organization. And that is what is the new kind of management, co-creation.
Yeah, and when we talk about well-being co-creation, I like the part about using the word language, because language helps us frame our perspectives, how we approach understanding, and we have a common language to propagate well-being. And speaking of which, I just want to put a hold for a little pause here for a little while, because I also want to invite the audience to ask questions. And since that is, you have any burning questions, right, feel free to just ask them. Okay. So now one more question for both of you. This is related to language and also the interventions and the measurements that you created. This is more technical because some of us here have not taken positive psychology. Which course or which lecturer or which content topic that you have managed to sift this out from?
Okay.
Yeah, I think I just want to give the context back to the syllabus and how it has impacted you.
Sure.
Yeah, you have shared the applied side of things. Let us go back to the course. Right?
Sure. Sure. From Avi Rosette, we love her. I mean, you would love every single lecturer, every single professor you come across, I guarantee it. Anyway, Avi Rosette's Positive Relationship and Social Connections inspired me to actually come up with a CSR program customized for the SME environment. And that actually was supposed to promote pro-social connections, right? It involves a 7-step framework that draws upon the SDT theory, the self-determined theory, and I deliberately did that to make sure every single team member is empowered to own the process and take total responsibility for it. And I also used, again, I am a firm believer of strengths and VIA. I use it very liberally. I also used VIA before allowing them to decide on the roles that they would undertake. That actually unlocked vast potential, right? And they started to see themselves in new lights, started to draw upon skills, expertise, and strengths that they didn't know existed. There was also a lot of self-awareness in the process because they realized there were strengths they needed to dial down on. The other one that is close to my heart is an intervention that I created and implemented during my corporate days. So, in order to prime the pump, I had to set the stage. So before throwing them into strategies and action planning, I actually created an intervention around Lego serious play and also introduced to them elements of positive psychology because I felt they needed to take this on board before we threw them into policy making, strategizing, and action planning across the board. It worked so very well. We were requested further beyond that to, replicate that several times. So there is a huge gap, I think, that still needs to be addressed, and it's good to know that the Singapore government is already doing it, in bringing on board greater positive psychology awareness and bridge that knowledge gap in policy making, right? The workplace model helped us address the very stressful, very challenging COVID years. And I personally used it for myself this always makes me a bit emotional, so bear with me. My MAC thesis was due and my mom fell ill and we lost her. But it was the SPARK model that actually helped me through. I did get an extension from the university. It was a 1-month extension, but I pulled through. So again, Ayana knows about this, Stefan knows about this. And again, I actually am very grateful to Ilona Bonniwell because I learned that SPARK model from her consultancy model, right? And I still continue, ladies and gentlemen, until today, I still continue to apply those interventions I created for my thesis into my own organization. My thesis was actually based on building up leadership capabilities and driving employee engagement for better business outcomes. Yeah, I still continue to do that today, and the results speak for themselves. They've been very positive. So even my husband is becoming a believer. Yay! Yes, and the thing here is, right, it's all about going outside of yourself, and a huge shout out to Yana. your positive psychology, introduction to positive psychology module gave me that solid foundation that saw me through the journey. And then a huge shout out to Ivy Rosette. Her positive relationship and social connections module was an eye-opener. I realized we don't invest enough in building well-being for ourselves and in others. And we just don't do enough.
So now you get to feel the conviction from both of them, right? Like spreading positive psychology and also the science of well-being. Social connection is the heart of what we do here, right? So in interest of time, I would like to open the questions to the floor and engage and invite people on the floor, you, since you're here today, spending social connecting time together with us, to ask any questions that you would like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any question that you would like to ask?
Can you share with us what's the language, or how did you start the ripples with leadership, with people around you? What's the narrative?
The narrative is love and compassion. And, obviously, Evie, who is one of the lecturers, says the difference between empathy and compassion is compassion has an action element to it. You want to do it. You want to make it happen. You cater then to the different people that you speak to. So my boss, he's a very logical person. He sees things in black and white. And he's very old school in the sense that he's 60 and he has lived through corporate life in the 90s, in the noughties, When I presented ideas to him, for example, forest bathing. But if you know what forest bathing is, it's the Japanese art of going inside the forest, feeling the nature, being at one with them, and it's scientifically proven that you feel relaxed, right? So I attended one at Botanic Gardens and I thought it was a great idea. And he just said, I'm not going to do that. That's the end of the story. And that's how leaders speak. So I learned from that and I sort of adjusted a little bit. So when I have a certain kind of idea, I actually use evidence to prove it. So I said, I'm going to do a community, a parenting talk. I'm going to get a few people together. And after a week, one of the participants said to me, the talk is really amazing. For the last few weeks, I attended the talk, but it wasn't just about parenting. It was meeting other parents who have issues. After the talk what was the takeaway for her? She said that she was close to a divorce because her daughter was reacting and she just doesn't know what to do. Through the talk, she realized there are other people in her situation. At the end of the day, all she wanted was asking the husband, can you just physically hug me? Because it was very standoffish, very Chinese, like, okay, hi, how are you? So she approached the husband one day and said, I just need you to hug me. I don't care what it is, but just hug me now. And the husband had no idea what she wanted, just like, okay, I'll hug you. But that was all it is. But how did she get from that point? Was she gained the confidence from that little initiative of just getting a few people together for a simple talk for a series of like a few months. And when she shared that story, it's so powerful, right? If it made you cry, it made you move, it will move the bosses too. So in one of the corporate meetings, it was up there, policy, let's see the data, let's forward plan. I didn't tell the bosses that I had this staff with me. So during my presentation, I stopped halfway and then everybody's like, what? I have someone outside the door and I would like to invite her in. And they're like, no, this is high level. Who is she? It's like, she's your staff. Everyone should be allowed to come into these meetings. So I brought her in and gave her the airtime to share her story. Wow. And all the bosses in a Singapore public service, which is very regimental, you have to follow procedures. they were like looking at the chairman, what is his reaction? And the chairman just listened, okay. And she just says that I was close to divorce. I met my community, I got support, and it's thanks to A-Star. And that convinced the chairman. He said, all the directors, we have to do more for staff.
Big round of applause to Hiro.
And you know, from an Asian standpoint, once the top says this is it, everybody else follows. And that's how you do it.
Wow, I haven't heard that story before.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
really touching.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, the conviction play, right? You get a sponsor on top to do, and then I could not imagine the courage that you exhibit to challenge the status quo in a organization like this.
In Singapore.
Exactly, and that is a positive psychology intervention. Thank you. So we have a few more minutes left, right? Just going around, scanning the room to see any hands up for questions. If not, I will just ask one final question, right? And this goes back to the heart of what you do, and also going back to the school, right? For those who are thinking about the program, maybe this is an open question. Will you recommend positive psychology, and why?
Absolutely, I would. It's time to change the narrative.
Yeah.
It's time to rehumanize society. One community, one organization at a time. And positive psychology is the way to go, unless you can tell me of a better way. You can see I'm very passionate about it. So, but I do believe this is the way to go. And permit me to also share Aaron Jardin's model for workplace well-being, which I think can be applied across the board, not just at the workplace. Very simple: me, we, us. It talks about what I do and how it benefits me, and then you radiate it outwards towards the teams you interact with, and then you take a more holistic picture and look at the community at large, at the us level. What I do impacts me, impacts my team, and the community at large. How can I have a deeper positive impact? For me, for us, for we, and for us, yeah? Aaron Jardin, remember that name, look him up. Very simple, applicable across the board.
Thank you, Manjit. Thank you.
I can only provide information. I don't want to convince, I don't want to coerce, because that's not my style. The information is Google. As simple as that. There's a reason why we're all here today, whether we're presenting, whether we're receiving. It means that there is an intention. And without paying the school, you just need to type what is it for me when I study positive psychology. What is wellness in the workplace? What is wellness in the family? If you're a teacher, what is wellness, well-being in schools? You will have so many information that's out there. And if it inspires you to want to know more, if it motivates you to want to act on these actions, then it's an indication that it's something that you resonate with. And you just need to believe that with, of course, the resources and the time, to start something small or go on an adventure, you know, with a course, whether it's a short course or long course, and see where it takes you. Because life's a journey.